So you know what I was actually surprised we got as much of in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie?
The jump scares?
Yeah.
Have you checked the children?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And I'm Davey Deathray.
That's right, I am joined once again by the amazing Davey Deathray. He is a new YouTuber on the block, and you guys should make sure you click the link in the description box and sub to his channel because he is a developing YouTuber, and we want to show all the support that we can, mostly because he knows what he's talking about when it comes to horror. You know, he has some preferences that are a little questionable on this channel. He's a Halloween lover. But, you know, that's okay. He's representative of a lot of you guys out there, so happy to have him on the channel. And today, we get to discuss the number one film that I put on my 10 most anticipated horror movies of 2023 back in January, and that's Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, I was super excited about this film because I am very familiar with the franchise, the game franchise that the film is based on. This is Blumhouse that has been developing this film for many, many years at this point. It's gone through false starts behind the scenes, and it just finally got things turned around a year or two ago. And so they finally have a film to release here in 2023, the first live-action Five Nights at Freddy's film, even though you might not know that. The layman might think that Willy's Wonderland was a Five Nights at Freddy's movie, or the Banana Splits movie was a Five Nights at Freddy's movie, because those were the prototypical, well, no, not even prototypical, those were the Five Nights at Freddy's knockoffs that came to film before Five Nights at Freddy's.
They beat him to the punch.
Yes, it did. Well, it's partly because of how long it took to develop this actual film.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to live up to, but this film has a massive built-in fan base. I think both of us experienced it at the press screening tonight.
Yeah.
It was jam-packed. Usually at a press screening, there's 3 rows for press, and a lot of those seats tend to be empty in most early screenings. This one was jam-packed. The whole theater was jam-packed. There was not an empty seat to be found. There were hoots, there were hollers, there were cheers of validation, there were jeers of anger. Like, there was everything to be found in this audience's reaction, which is everything that you want when you go to the movies. Yeah. It wasn't annoying people on their phones. It was people jacked in to the film and either really enjoying it or really not. And
I heard a gasp.
I heard plenty of gasps.
So it was
actually,
really cool.
Yeah.
And just
I was one of them. Like, I was one of them next to you because I was like, they did that.
Yeah,
you know?
People recognizing stuff from the video games, and I don't know anything about Five Nights at Freddy's, really.
That's why this is going to be a good review.
Yeah, I just checked out like a quick history, 10-minute video on YouTube just to kind of get up to speed a little bit. So it was really cool. Just coming in fresh and not really knowing much about the franchise.
Yeah,
so.
Davey has no attachment to the lore. He's never played the franchise. He'd never seen any gameplay of the franchise, right?
I've never watched anyone play the game. I'm still playing like the original Castlevania.
So Davey's a bit behind. On the
RE4.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I just finished that myself, and I just purchased the Ada Wong.
I need to get
DLC,
that.
I gotta play that next. But I just finished the game. Separate ways,
yeah.
Indeed, exactly. So, yeah, guys, we're here to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's, and that's the 2 perspectives you're gonna get. You're gonna get the perspective of someone that loves the games, that knows the lore a lot more than someone that has never been familiar with the lore or the games. So there you go. You get both sides of the coin here, and in our reviews, Davey, we do our overall thoughts. Then we talk about the story, the acting, the effects. We break it down to each of the filmmaking categories pretty much.
Cool.
And I want to start with the overall thoughts from you as a newcomer, because I'm very, very curious about that. Just the overall skim, and we'll dive into the details as we go along.
Yeah, I mean, I think the attention to detail, making it look so much like the few shots I've seen of the game that you've shown me, and just from what I knew about the lore, I felt like, you know, they have some intrigue here and some mystery. The whole first act was like, I'm sitting there thinking, man, this is, if I were a kid, this is shaping up to be my favorite movie. Like, this is like when I was, you know, like 8 years old and the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie came out.
Yeah.
That was like the movie that was at every sleepover, every birthday party culminated with that film.
This is going to be
And
that.
it was just so important. So like was immediately getting those vibes. And yeah, I thought it was really fun for coming in from, you know, not knowing much. That's my overall.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, I was confused. I didn't know what to say right out of the theater. So I had high hopes for the film. I didn't know what they'd go for. I will say my overall thoughts are these. I enjoyed myself. I was surprised at how much the movie focused on the lore versus the animatronic horror. I feel like, objectively speaking, as a horror fan, even though I'm subjective to the material, objectively speaking, I feel like there could have been more carnage and there could have been more scare factor throughout the film. However, I was invested in the story that was being told, and even though there were leaps to be made from scene to scene at certain points where you're like, oh, suddenly we're there in the storytelling and everyone's on board. Like, that happened a couple of times that was a little surprising. So there was some story shortcuts that were taken, but it didn't detract from the overall enjoyment. There was a stint in the middle of the movie that was a lot happier than I thought we'd ever get in a Five Nights at Freddy's movie. But it went to telling the story that the film was telling versus what we've gotten in the games, which there's a lot of crossover. This is its own kind of turn at the story, but it respects a lot of what's come before. So those of you that are FNAF FNAF lore hounds, I think you're going to be very pleased because it is drenched in lore. But I think you gore hounds are going to be a bit disappointed because this is a very, very PG-13, borderline PG horror movie to me. You could take your kids to see this if they were 10, 11, 12. Does not need to be 13. I don't think there was a bit of red gore in the whole movie that I can recall.
There's maybe a
superficial
touch.
wounds.
Yeah.
Nothing that was grievous injury.
Sure, they
any
definitely...
grievous injury was kept to shadow.
Yeah, they held back.
And there was only really one of those instances.
And it seemed like they were sort of teasing at first, and maybe it would ramp up. But yeah, anyway.
But no, it was overall. No, it's fine. That's why this is. It's a tennis game.
Yeah,
you
for
know?
sure.
So yeah, no. Feel free. Don't like hold anything back just because you think I'm going to cover it. Hit it so I don't have to. You know what I mean? But yeah, I feel like there could have been way more gore. I don't think this is going to be a situation where there's like a Megan R-rated cut that we get after the fact. I think this was shot the way it was shot. The problem is, and I will say this out of the gate, a vast majority of the kills in the film were cut away from entirely. You don't actually see a lot of what happens kill-wise in the film. And that's why I think it's going to be okay to be shown at 13-year-old birthday parties and stuff like that, because there's just almost no gore to be had. There's one shot that could be considered gore, but even that is largely in shadow with no reds to be found on screen.
But it is, and it's creative. There are a couple of moments in there where I was like, oh man, it felt like they were taking it as far as they could and keep it PG-13.
Yeah.
And keep it a PG-13 movie that parents will be okay with having their kids watch.
So as someone that's new to the franchise, was it dissatisfying the fact that we cut away from most of the kills, or were you okay with it overall?
I was totally buying into the way it was presented.
Okay.
So for me, I guess it's just, I like movies that have gore in them. I just think it's how you use it and if it's effective and if it works with the rest of the tone of the piece.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing the way the rest of the movie was going and there's some like heavy emotional stuff going on, I was completely okay with the fact that they weren't delivering too much. And,
Okay.
and I knew, like, you kind of know what the audience is too. So I'm just like, yeah, they're not going to make it. It's not like the 80s anymore where you're like watching RoboCop.
Yeah.
As a kid for some
Yeah,
reason.
yeah. Or
So,
no, I mean, but
you
even
know.
so, some of the kids' movies in the '80s got aggressive. as
Sure,
well,
yeah.
You know, so yeah, no, it's definitely not like Never-Ending Story even. Dark.
No,
You know what I
that
mean?
movie is disturbing, but so rewatchable.
It's absolutely fantastic.
And
but
there's like one bad word maybe, so it's really tame.
I don't
on
even remember
language.
what it would have been if it was, you know.
It
but
was the pharmacist.
oh, that's
Yeah.
right.
And
Well,
it
but
gets-
that
so it
was
gets a
just
great
an
laugh.
a-hole.
It
You know, like
yes.
that. The most harsh language in the film is one a-hole.
Yeah, and people
Like-
say, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah,
you know,
like
it's very,
literally,
very-
guys, it's not. You can literally take your 10-year-old to see this
Yeah.
if they're okay with kind of scary tones.
Some jump scare
because
kind
there's
of
a lot
stuff.
of scary tones and there
Yeah.
are some jump scares. Yes, but this could very well be a my first horror movie kind of horror movie.
Gosh,
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Watching the first act, I'm like, this is a classic for these kids.
This
you
movie,
know?
this movie
So-
again, I feel vindicated. Davey was here for a live discussion a few days ago. If you're interested and you're just watching this review, but you didn't watch that discussion, go back. We
watch
discuss Halloween, which is Davey's foray, and FNAF, which is mine, and we discuss what we think we're going to get out of the film and how we think it's going to do. And after seeing it, I do feel like it's going to make a lot of money from kids going back and
Yeah.
back and back. Dude, the amount of times, if I was anywhere from 12 to 16, I would have gone to see this so many times. Over
Yeah.
and over and over again, I would have paid to see this movie.
And drag mom and dad at least once. You know,
No.
at least that first time.
No,
mom
this
and
would have
dad.
been a me and my friends
But I'm
thing.
just for the
I would've-
tickets for the sales.
Well, that's
that
fair.
first time they're gonna get mom and
That
dad,
PG-13,
and then mom and dad
no.
will be like, okay, go watch.
We
the
just,
movie.
well, fair enough. We may have bought tickets for something else and then just walked into FNAF.
Okay, there
that
you
probably would have been how we did it.
I was one of those. I was good. I paid
You
for
were
all
a
my
good boy.
movies.
No.
I saw Heavyweights 3 times in the theater.
Starting
and I
with
would
Mortal
watch this
Kombat,
one. Yeah.
I started buying tickets for something else and going
Yeah.
to watch Mortal Kombat
the first
instead.
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
that one's fun.
That was
I like
awesome.
That one.
Yeah.
Good
But it
job.
was still PG-13.
Yeah.
And I had to buy tickets for something else because I think I was 10. 'Cause it was
Oh,
90,
dang.
right? Wasn't it?
Was it
No,
94,
it would have been
95?
94, 95.
Right, okay.
Yeah, because the game wasn't even until 93. Anyway, sidetrack.
Well, we're talking about video game movies,
Yeah,
so
that's
it's,
fair.
So
That's
it's really
fair.
interesting to see how far they really have come. Because man, when I was a kid, it was like the Double Dragon movie with that guy
Yeah.
from Party of Five or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
There's the Mario Brothers movie, which is very strange and kind of cool. In
We've
its
come
own
full
strange
circle on the
way.
Mario Brothers movie because we had the really awful
Yeah.
90s live action, and then
Yeah.
we had the 2022
The one that looks like a game.
amazing, game one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think like here we are, Blumhouse with another property that's highly sought after, a video game franchise that is so well represented.
And I feel like they did a really good job. Yeah,
yeah,
like
you said it took a long time to develop, and man, you can see every bit of it in the detail.
Scott Cawthorne, they finally found a sweet spot to tell the story that does respect the lore and does kind of do its own thing as well. But what I think is the triumph of the film is the Henson Company and the animatronics.
Oh my god, yeah.
The animatronics are so incredible and they're so game accurate. Like any other film studio besides Blumhouse would have probably tried to redesign the characters
Yeah.
to make them look
Oh,
more
yeah.
Hollywood and all this shit.
Yes.
But no, they went strictly game design, and it's gonna judging by this audience, it's gonna please the hell out of fans.
Yeah.
And it's gonna thrill a lot of the people that are just familiar with Chuck E. Cheese or Showbiz Pizza,
Yeah.
right? That's both sides of the country as far
Yeah.
as animatronic children's pizza places go. And I like that they used good music and music from
Yeah.
the era that the characters were singing and
Yeah.
stuff, because again, that's the throwback. But So we've kind of jumped ahead in a lot of categories. Let's scroll back to the story. So the story is about Mike, who is has been appointed as the guardian of his little sister after tragedy has befallen their mother, and their father has exited the story long beforehand. Which, by the way, is something I need to tell you after the fact, because there's deeper. Mike is in the game. He's Mike Afton.
Oh.
And you don't know that for a few games into the series.
Gotcha.
Who's
So
trying
the
to
whole
go
Schmidt
back.
thing is
He's
just
trying to go back
okay.
and stop his father's stuff in the games.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's really interesting.
Gotcha, okay.
So, but that hasn't been revealed yet. We don't know who's, because his father's out of the picture, right? Mm-hmm. So, could still be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But anyway, we get the story of Mike, who is caring for his little sister, and he is unfortunately hot-headed and unable to hold a job, and so he is guided by his guidance counselor, played by Matthew Lillard, and to great effect. And any of you that know the games, Matthew Lillard's character is wearing a purple tie, which is representative of the Purple Man, as you saw in the game.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So that's why the purple ties.
That's the bit of the
That's the
clue
tie,
there.
and that's the clue as to who he is. And yeah, so he tells Mike that, you know, unfortunately, because of his hot-headedness, he has very limited options, but there is one job, but it's nights, and he has to figure that out. So Mike figures it out, ends up having to take the job, and thus the 5 Nights at Freddy's begins, which Freddy's is Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which is a closed-down pizza joint that was very much like Chuck E. Cheese, Showbiz Pizza, and it was closed down because of something that happened that Mike is not aware of until later in the film. Mike, as he is spending nights as the security guard, he is also trying to figure out something from his past. That's Mike's, you know, wants and desires in the film, and it's coincides with kind of what's happening at Freddy's.
Yeah.
So it all eventually ties together in a very interesting way, and you can get that along the way. That's not really a spoiler. I won't say how it all ties together, but it's well done, I really think, in the story department. I don't want to say much more than that, but you know, it's the animatronics come alive and start to cause carnage and more. Like, that's the log line, the animatronics come alive and start carnage, but that middle section, now it's and more, because they've never really been known to be tickle monsters previous to this, is all I'll say.
That scene, like, I think that's what you were talking about. We were saying that it reaches like some happiness where you're just like, oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like,
that's what I started
thinking.
thinking.
Did it throw you as a new view, like a new experience, or did it feel in line? Like, did it overall work in the story for you?
Yeah, because
it's new to all of us that are familiar with the lore.
Well, I'm sitting there watching it. First off, I thought it was going to be a movie that had I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a scene of carnage before everything gets a little tighter.
Yeah.
And I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, I didn't know they were going to go that route. When they had that like moment of goodness and everything.
Yeah.
I was sort of like, where's this going to go from here? So I guess, it just made me, I like asking myself questions when I'm watching a movie because it keeps me engaged.
Yeah.
And I don't even need all the answers all the time, but I was just sort of like, oh, well, I'm curious to see what's next, because I thought it was going to be one thing and now is it going to be something else? It was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, so that's the thing. It threw me off when some of that happened, but ultimately it served the story.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so there was some kind of allusions. At one point, it felt like this could be the case. That, it was a like-mindedness that allowed for the goodness that we experienced.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Without spoiling anything. Once you see the movie, you'll understand what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But we're trying to be cagey about it because we want you to just experience it outright. And so it's interesting to me to say that me as a lore hound, I was pleased and intrigued with the route they took. As a lore virgin, were you pleased and like happy with the route that they took, or do you wish it would have maybe gone a different direction somehow?
I liked it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm coming in from it like
There is
without
one
having
thing that was not explained that I will ask you about in the very, very end segment of this that we'll consider a spoiler section.
Okay, cool.
Okay, because I do think there's enough worth talking about to have a spoiler section at the end of this.
Yeah, and like in general, I'm a fan of when as long as you can, if you're going to stray from the lore, as long as you could do it in a way that seems properly motivated and that it makes sense within that story you're trying to tell, then I'm all for it. Like in general, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that likes Halloween Ends. So when it comes to even not having that,
No accounting for taste.
even not having that frame of reference with the video games, if what happened there was taking a chance, I'm all for it. Like,
Yeah.
as long as we bring it around and it makes sense together in the end.
Yeah. And I think ultimately it did with the framework
Yeah.
that they set up here. Just finishing out the non-spoilery things, let's talk about the filmmaking, and then we'll talk about the effects. So filmmaking-wise, I actually really appreciated all the nods to the game. It was shot a lot of ways, similar to the game, because there was a lot of angles repeated from the game, especially the camera angles, the security footage. Very effectively used, and when the characters just start to move, it's unnerving and stuff like that.
Yes.
So the presentation was very interesting to me. I liked it for the most part, and I will say that the thing that carried it the most, though, was more sound design, and the fact that they used so much from the game. The fact that they actually use the dum da dum 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 dum.
Yeah,
that's something that happens when the power's running out in the game.
Okay.
And you hear dum da dum dum dum. You're like, oh shit, fucking Foxy's coming. You gotta
Yeah.
do something like.
And you
all
hear-
that is so
You hear the music in the background still playing, like in the ballroom,
Yep,
like while
yep.
that's happening, and I think the can getting kicked or something like that. I heard that a couple times.
Yep.
So I'm like, is that the same sound? And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, it makes sense if they're really bringing in all the video game stuff,
They had a lot of fun with the sound design and the filmmaking. How did you feel about the angles and everything? Did it feel pedestrian? Did it feel elevated, or was it like just serviceable?
I thought they did a really good job at making everything seem unsettling.
Okay,
Picking good
okay.
angles. I don't know, like it's odd. Like in a way, it's sort of
They shot the animatronics low, which is really smart.
Kind of reminds
Make
me
them
of
imposing.
like old Twilight Zone episodes that are really effective at like making you get goosebumps without needing to be graphic. Like just making you feel something that's like, oh, that's off. And I thought that was like a combination of the great design on the animatronics and the way they shot it.
So you hit on something, and I think you made me realize what bothered me about the good section.
Mm-hmm.
I think it takes away from the scariness of the animatronics when you have a good section, right? When that's occurring, suddenly they're no longer scary monsters anymore. Now they're more what they are,
Yeah.
without spoiling what they are. Now
Yeah.
they're more represented by what they are, as opposed to the scary things that they are in the game all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
Does that take away the scariness for you? Because now thinking about it, I think that was a problem that I had inside. Like, they're not as scary after you're trying to ingratiate us to them a little bit.
I mean, it does change things maybe a little bit. I think, if you have kids watching this movie, maybe they just it's a scene to sort of lighten things up.
They want to make it so that they have Halloween in the bag for next 5 years, but they don't want to send little kids screaming from the
They want you to buy the
animatronic
toys.
costumes.
They want you to buy those
There's
toys.
going to be
buy those
costumes out there trick-or-treating, and you don't
Yeah.
want to be responsible for every kid under the age of
Sure.
10 fleeing in terror.
Yeah, well, and
only.
I think that it was also like a really good opportunity for them to show what they could do with the animatronics. There was like some really good acting in that moment.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just a bit more of a showcase, and I think maybe they just want to make you ask those questions and give you possibly a false sense of security.
Possibly so. I think the last thing to really discuss is, let's talk about the acting, and then we'll talk about the effects.
Okay.
So acting-wise, I actually was a big fan of Josh Hutcherson. He did a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked Vanessa the cop,
Mm-hmm.
and I really liked his sister. Honestly, all the actors did a really good job in the film. There was no one that pulled me out of it, and I mean, I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be like a father-daughter relationship or a brother-sister until later, but it made more sense age-wise, right? Because Josh Hutcherson
it's
still
right there on the
he
cusp.
still plays really young.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, yeah, acting-wise, I thought everyone did a wonderful job.
Yeah, it was really well acted. Yeah, the little girl is really just a natural.
Yeah.
Mary Stuart Masterson is in there as the aunt.
That's who
That's
that
Mary,
was.
and like I've always really liked her. She was in Benny and June,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I've
yeah.
always really liked her, and I haven't seen her in a long time, so I thought she was really effective in the role.
I know I recognize her, yeah.
There's a character that's like nearly silent that got a lot of laughs when they were on screen. The lawyer got a ton of laughs.
yeah, dude, great
So
character actor.
it's always really fun to
Whoever
see
that dude
kind of-
is, yeah.
And just,
stole
you
the
know,
show every scene, every angle he was in.
People were like giggling the entire time.
Every angle he was in, he was hilarious.
And
yeah.
it was a relatively small cast, so it was really, you know, you get
True.
to spend quite a bit of time with the main crew.
you get like 10, 12 people total, and that's including the extras in the diner kind of situation.
And Josh Hutcherson, he has to. There's some like really emotional moments where it looks like it's just him on camera.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be. I don't know if it's more difficult or less difficult for actors to just be by themselves, but I thought he did a really good job pulling all that off. Like
I
that's
agree.
some tough stuff. And,
I agree.
Kind of a relatively big chunk of what he's got to do.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that leads us to the effects, right? And there was
Kind of talked about them the whole time. They're
well,
great.
we did throughout. Well, we didn't specify the fact that it is. I mean, do you recall any digital? I think it was almost all practical, except for some digital enhancements here and there.
Sure, and
But I think, I mean, these are
maybe there's some
no the
certain shots
cupcake.
of the cupcake.
The cupcake was all practical.
Okay.
The cupcake was all practical, and there was it was lighting that was selling
Sure,
the cupcake.
yeah.
Because it was quick flashes and stuff like
Okay.
that. Again, I'm sure there were some digital inserts, but overall, it was mostly practical. And again, it was all the Jim Henson Company.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're the people behind Labyrinth. They're the people behind the Dark Crystal and the recent Dark Crystal series, amongst tons of other work in between.
Yeah.
Including, the Creature Workshop reality show that
Sure,
was working
yeah,
with
absolutely.
the Henson Company. They're so talented, and this is very much, on the level of talent that, I mean, God, it's incredible what they were able to do with the animatronics here.
Yeah, and I think it's a testament to the production company, to Blumhouse and everyone involved, because it's got to be more expensive to do practical effects, which is why there's so much digital out there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm sure there are some enhancements. Maybe they're like, oh, we want the eye to like actually do this little thing.
Cutting
instead of that
away
little
from
thing.
as many kills as they did helps alleviate need for digital
Sure.
kills
Yeah.
and
Oh, for
stuff
sure.
like
Absolutely.
that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
So that
the
is
weight,
a thing. You know what I mean?
The weight of the animatronics.
I
is
love
really
the
nice,
weight.
so-
Again, the sound design helped sell the weight.
Yes.
The big thud every
Yeah.
time they're taking a step.
That's a big thing with me with effects is like
There has to be weight to them.
yeah, so that's like when you can tell if digital effects are good or if they're not, if you feel that
100%.
yeah,
Nope.
and this was you can't tell that there's anything. I didn't know with the cupcake just because of a couple things that it did. So I was just like, oh, maybe just for that one shot they do, and then you can't.
Well, the
fault them,
cupcake is not technically an autonomous thing in the games. That
Okay.
was for the film.
Oh,
Like,
okay,
they changed that, and that's the weird thing, right? 'Cause we'll get to it in the. Let's call it there for our non-spoiler thoughts on Five Nights at Freddy's. We both enjoyed it for different reasons, right? I enjoyed it for the lore. He enjoyed it for the overall thing. But I think there's going to be some people that might think it's lackluster, lacking in gore. But I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see how this thing performs. Again, Blumhouse decided to not only release a day and date on Peacock on Friday, but they moved that up to Thursday night.
Yeah.
Since the screenings take place Thursday night, people could go see it at 6 p.m. They're going to put it up on fucking Peacock at 6 p.m. on Thursday night. So
Yeah.
people are going to be able to see it right away. I do think that it will still make a lot of money, but I think it would have made way more if you'd kept it strictly theatrical.
Yeah,
especially in
it's
the
a shame.
Halloween season.
Yeah, it's a shame because I think it stands pretty tall as far as this is exactly the kind of movie these kids are going to want to see.
Yeah,
So-
I agree. So there you go, guys. That's it for our non-spoiler thoughts. Let's talk about the spoiler stuff real quick. Okay, spoilers. But yeah, Matthew Lillard does indeed play William Afton, and he is indeed in the Golden Bonnie suit at the end of the film, when all hell breaks loose. So there are 5 nights at Freddy's, but nothing particularly crazy happens until night 5. And I will say that the thing I wanted to bring up was the thing that was never explained. So the Freddy that came to get the kid, did you notice that it was all tore up? It was missing an ear.
I didn't notice.
Yeah, so that's Golden Freddy, technically, in the games, where it's kind of battle damaged. It's an old suit that someone else is using. And did you notice that its eyes were blue the whole time instead of ever going red?
Oh, yeah, okay.
But after she's brought back, when we see Freddy, he's got both ears and everything in his hat. It's not the same animatronic that went to get the daughter.
I totally missed that.
So I think that was Garrett's animatronic.
Oh, that came with the Freddy.
Yeah, I think he stuffed Garrett into Golden Freddy.
Gotcha.
In this universe. So,
and didn't the kid say not Freddy?
Yeah.
She's like, Freddy.
Yeah, he said not Freddy. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So that's the thing. Okay, so the lore in this is Mike. We find out that as a kid, he and his family were camping, and his little brother Garrett was running off into the woods, and he was supposed to watch him, and he got distracted by a frisbee, only to see Garrett being taken away in the car, driven by a man whom he doesn't remember.
Yeah.
And so he purposely goes to sleep at night every night looking at a poster of the woods, listening to woods sound effects to get him back in the mindset to try and review, because he's of the mindset, and I've heard this before, where there's a theory that we as humans are so advanced that everything that we've ever seen we store on our brain computer.
It's cataloged, yeah.
And it's a matter of how we bring it back up. It's the same thing as those very, very fraction of a portion of the human race that has a disease where they can literally recall every second of their lives.
Wow. That's a disease.
It's considered as a disease. There was a girl that was on TV that was very well known for having this, where you can literally recall every second of your life. So anytime you spoke to anyone, you recall the entire conversation. You remember everything that happens to you.
That sounds like an X.
So it's no, I know, but it's true. It's a possible thing that happens. So the idea is that what if we all do that? We just aren't able to access it the way those people are.
You have to teach yourself how to do it. Yeah, it seems like he's trying to, like he's edging.
Yeah,
like,
so he well, careful. Edging can mean a lot. No,
I'm too old to know what it means, so I actually don't know. He's edging
we'll
closer.
Yeah, fair enough. But
now
no,
I have to look it up.
He's trying to figure out what happened by searching his memory. He's trying to see if there's clues that he's missed over the years to try and figure out what happened to his brother. And it actually ends up kind of tying into everything, because it turns out that it was William Afton that took his brother.
Yeah.
And so that's who I think was in the Freddy suit. I think it was probably the brother that was put into a different Freddy.
Yeah, that's true. I
guess. Yeah. So in the trailer, if you've seen the trailer, if you're watching this and you haven't watched the movie, but if you've watched the trailer, at the end of the trailer, it shows Freddy with a damaged side in the back of the car. And I thought what was going to happen is I thought Josh Hutcherson was going to almost be killed, and he was going to put himself into one of the animatronics, and he was going to fight the other ones and get battle damaged, and then be the guardian taking her home.
Wow.
That actually, I think, would have probably been a little bit better.
Well, because I guess
that's what I thought was going to happen, but no, it was a completely different entity that we never see again.
Yeah, and I guess they're just saving some for the next one. I mean,
yeah.
It seems like, when you have the original creator involved, he's probably got
Scott Cawthorn Productions. It's at the very beginning.
Yeah. So he's probably got...
Made me feel better about calling my company Cecil Laird Productions, I'll be honest with you.
I mean, come on, use your own name. Yeah, they got Davey Deathray all over the damn place.
Yeah, I've caught some shit about it.
I don't even make movies, and it's all over the place.
Well, that's at least... I mean, were you born Davey Deathray?
I was born David Charles Conway.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
not so much. But anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, to get back to that, the good stuff scene, I started thinking there, I'm like, wait, is it going to be like almost like Christine, where, they like protect these guys and kill the people that want to hurt them? Like, and
That's
then
kind of what it turned into a little bit.
And that it was going to be that there wasn't going to be a catch, because there clearly is a catch.
Yeah.
There's something that the spirits want, and they, won't stop until they're satisfied.
Yeah, so the middle part that we were talking about, the fun part, is there's a whole middle section where the daughter is brought and she ends up encountering all the animatronics, but they're like tickling her, like they're all having a good time, and they just want to, and it's kind of cool, like, you're right, okay, they're the ghost of children, they just want to play with another child, right? Okay, if you're okay for a little bit, and then it turns out, of course, that they ultimately want to have her join them.
Yeah.
And become an animatronic as well, so not so good. But that's, that's sort of the difference that happens from game to story, and then it is revealed that that the golden bunny that took the kids away and killed them, not only did he stuff them into the bodies of the animatronics, which was awesome that they did that, although again, they could have leaned into that more by showing close-ups of the joints of the animatronics and have like blood and sinew like dried up and caked on, you know what I mean, from the kids. Because that's a thing that they do mention in the games, in the news articles along the way. They're like, part of why the place was closed was because there was nasty smells coming that couldn't be identified,
and they never looked in the animatronics.
No,
Come on, people.
No, so yeah, so that's the thing.
So they're like zombie animatronics,
kind of. Yeah,
they just got that look.
Basically,
to them. Yeah.
basically. And so the Balloon Boy scare, by the way, Balloon Boy is a whole character that does jump scares starting in part 2.
Okay.
And so they just included... I love that they kept doing Balloon Boy jump scares, but it was just the little toy that he kept turning around.
They found a way to make it
facing
work.
the other way.
It's a good callback.
Yeah, it was really fun. And yeah, so they took liberties, but they stuck with the lore and ultimately revealed that the recruiter at the beginning of the film is indeed William Afton, wearing the giant... So it's a golden Bonnie suit is what it is. It's the same bunny that the blue bunny is. It's just a golden suit. It's called the Golden Bonnie suit. And that's the Springlock suit that ultimately William Afton in the games does die in. Once all of the ghost children, the ghosts are released from in part, I think it's either part 3 or part 4, in the mini games, there's 8-bit mini games which are shown in the opening credits. You see the 8-bit stuff in the opening credits, but yeah, so in the game, all of the kids are freed from their animatronics by the end of the game, and they gang up. All the ghost children gang up on William Afton and force him into the Springlock Bonnie suit, and then water leaks on him, and it triggers all the Springlocks and kills him inside the Springlock Bonnie suit. But unfortunately, William Afton says, "I always come back."
And he does.
And
he does that in the movie.
And yes, Matthew Lillard does say, "I always come back" in the movie, and that was fucking great for lorehounds. But that's the thing, he does continue to come back in various forms, and even so, he's like digital Springlock Bonnie is like the big bad guy right now in the VR games and stuff like that. So yeah, William Afton is still out there causing harm even after his death and shit.
Yeah, and that suit is, especially that first shot of him in the suit where he's like
so
hunched
huge.
over.
Yeah, he's got to come out.
So creepy and unsettling, and it's really cool to see. It's so funny how like
his voice change sounded cool too.
Yeah, you couldn't really tell it was him until the head came off, and then I thought I'm like, wow, what a full circle thing for Matthew Lillard, where you play a masked killer in Scream. And then you're Shaggy in a Scooby-Doo movie. And then you get to be the bad guy that's basically
unmasks
a Scooby-Doo villain.
Yeah,
it's this
unmasks.
crazy arc. And he was in SLC Punk, and he's great.
Yeah, no, I agree. Dude, SLC Punk, dude, that shit'll make you cry.
We love Matthew Lillard.
Oh, he's so... We are Matthew Lillard stans, yeah. But here's the interesting thing. So in Security Breach, there's a character introduced called Vanessa that ends up being led by digital William Afton and becoming Vanny, a evil bunny character. So Vanessa Bunny, and now Vanessa is William Afton's daughter, and he was a golden bunny.
Yeah.
Very easy to transition to Vanny for episode 2.
Sure, and she is like, she's still kicking, but who knows what's going to happen with her. She is hooked up to machines.
So, like, she could very easily be the next big bad.
Yeah.
And then ultimately you can have, could
Yeah.
have both of them show up. Exactly.
Yeah.
So are you engaged enough to want to watch more should they do more?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right
Yeah,
on.
I would watch another one. Just to see where they take it. They seem to be setting it up really well. Just based on how it looks, compared to the game, I trust them moving forward to, keep it entertaining.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these kinds of things have diminishing returns, but when you have so much material built up, it's already in the bank, and it's already proven to be successful. As long as you stay faithful to it, then you should be good. It should be money.
Spoiler, there is a Matt Pat cameo for any of you guys that are Five Nights at Freddy's YouTube lore fans. Matt Pat and the Game Theory channel and Film Theory has done lots of Five Nights at Freddy's material, and he shows up as a waiter at one point in a diner, and it's hilarious because he says his lines, and everyone. There was so many people that reacted to it that I didn't hear all of his lines, but I heard towards the end he's like, "But that's just a theory," and then he taps the menus and walks away, and I was like, he said the thing.
He did say the thing.
Game theory, film theory, food theory, and style theory on YouTube.
You could tell people recognized him, and people, man,
this was the audience for it.
Yeah, the gasps. I mean, especially when Vanessa's like, "This guy's my dad." There were people. It was like Darth Vader telling Luke he was. His
and then
father.
when
people were just like,
when Matthew Lillard ripped off the bunny suit, some dude a row back was like, "I knew it."
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, you guys. It's not I don't know that I'd put it in my top 10 of the year, but I might. Just for sheer appreciation of the lore and the fact that it wasn't complete crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think sometimes you kind of have to put it in its own, when a film is like, if I'm going to critique a horror movie compared to something like Citizen Kane, I'm going to use different qualifying factors.
Yeah.
So when you watch something like Five Nights at Freddy's and you think that, okay, this is a PG-13 film, it's trying to skew as even younger than PG-13. And I think that they execute it really well. So
I agree.
Yeah, I recommend it.
Yeah, I would too, you guys.
Watch more.
So there you go. I think that's going to do it for our coverage of Five Nights at Freddy's. Thank you very much to Davey Deathray for joining me for this little episode here. I'm sure it's probably like a 40-minute episode, but yeah. Thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel the way that you do. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you. And until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
And I'm Davey Deathray.
And remember, stay scared.